Okay then, got some nice hot cocoa. Freezing out there, snow, stay warm. New card coming to the game. We've got Miek. By the time you see this video, maybe it might already be out or it's coming out later today. So I'm here to tell you what this card's about. Is it worthy of your token / spotlight caches? What sort of decks it's going to play into. So those are the three main things to cover, and we'll see if it's something that you really want to invest in. Looking at the card, 1 cost, 1 power after each turn. If you discarded any cards, plus 1 power for each and move. I like this because it fits into a discard deck, right? So if you're playing discard, maybe you didn't have a 1 that you wanted to play or could play first, Miek's always a good choice. 100% of the time is a good choice. Now, it is susceptible to Killmonger, which is going to be out there a lot. You're not going to run Kyra likely with his deck, so just know that. I do like that the ant move on here. Originally, I was like, why? Why? Because are you going to try to combine discard and move decks? No, probably not. I mean, we're going to look at some. It's likely, I think, going to fail. I think it's just 2 totally different archetypes that probably aren't going to mesh well together, at least given the cards that we have at the game now. But what I like is it is more easy to dodge the Shadow Kings and potentially, and I don't know if it'll get this high a lot, but the Shang-Chi's of the world. I do think if you're playing with MODOK, Hela type decks, or if you're doing a lot of discarding, this certainly can get up there. There's no doubt about it. You've got things with Swarm, and maybe you're doing multiple, say, on reveal hits with Kamar-Taj or something, you know, Miek could keep getting bigger and bigger. So I do like that. I think it could be a lot of fun. Knowing that it's 1 cost, like I said, gosh, it just worries me with the Killmonger, but at least you can dodge, hopefully, the Shadow Kings and the Shang-Chi's of the world, depending on priority. Again, if you're not a discard player, I don't know. We'll talk about that with the graphic a little bit to see what we think, but I think this is a card that discard players are probably going to really want to get. But again, we want to look at the decks. We want to look at the graphic and sort of make a final decision. My first initial take on this card a long time ago was I'm not touching this thing other than being a content creator and wanting to have a complete collection. So we'll take a peek at that. Let's jump over to the decks right now. Shout out to our friends over at Marvel Snap Zone. We are going to use their database for the card or the decks that we've got out there. We like to do this. It showcases some other players in the game, not try to, I don't know, fight over ownership or anything like that. I know that's always a hot button. So we're going to give some judgment to these decks. It's going to be honest, cruel, and, you know, maybe polite. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not going to hold anything back when I first look at these. It's going to be kind of a hot take. First look, we've got MODOK Miek by Savage Yeti, fellow content creator. Miek, Blade, Morbius, Wolverine, Swarm, Colleen Wing, Daken, Lady Sif, Dracula, Hellcow, MODOK, and APOC. I love the APOC with this stuff because you're going to want to do multiple discards. MODOK, not bad. You know, the whole Dracula archetype, as far as discard goes, really took a hit with America Chavez, really not being able to be there to anchor that card. They are adjusting it to be something different here, but, you know, I don't know. We'll see if that hangs in there. Hellcow, I like that you can discard 2. The Daken feels a little greedy, not gonna lie. I think it's interesting. I don't mind. It's not like there's another, I mean, you're looking at Lady Sif, Daken, or a 2 and maybe a 1 that you'd play on turn 3. So if you don't get your Lady Sif, Daken does give you a backup there, assuming you don't have a 2 and a 1 to play, or just a regular 2 on turn 3 and not wasting any energy. But you're going to have to want to get that MODOK, or I guess that Colleen Wing if you want. APOC's always there to get hit. And, you know, I like that when you're looking at all of these, if you're playing that Hellcow, which is a solid 4/8, that's a good, strong card to put out there at 8 power. You don't really stress too much about what you're hitting in your hand. At that point, you're like, look, hit whatever. I don't even care. I'm going to get points with Miek, potentially hit an APOC. Dracula might hit APOC later if I've got that on the board. You know, maybe you're playing that Hellcow on 5 instead. It's, you know, you got 1 energy maybe, or 1 leftover energy. I actually like this more than I thought I would up front. The thing I'd maybe look at changing, I think, is the Wolverine. Wolverine's not bad, but I'd maybe look at trying to get something a little bit different here. We'll see what we can think of as we look through these to kind of play. I mean, maybe you don't have some big cards for the Black Knight, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. As I look through, I mean, maybe Silver Samurai with the Daken. I don't know. So, but then you might get a little clunky on the front end, but you've got a lot of 2s and 1s. Anyway, so solid deck. Miek, Hela. Another one by Savage Yeti. Let's see here. So we've got, this is a Black Knight one too. So we've got, with the Black Knight, we've got Death, Infinite, Giganto, Magneto to potentially play that down. The Hela play is interesting. Jubilee brings something in earlier. You got the Lockjaw in here. This is an interesting one. There's potential here. There's not a lot to feed Lockjaw. This could get clunky with Lockjaw. I think Lockjaw might be a little greedy in this. I like the thought of it, but I just don't see a lot of things to feed Lockjaw to bring something out. I like the Jubilee play, but I think I would rather do a Zabu over a Lockjaw on this. I'd take the different doggy type. I guess it's not really a dog, but I'd rather go Zabu here. Maybe get my Jubilee or Dracula a little bit cheaper. I'd look along those lines, or maybe even a MODOK, I guess, if depending on which route you want to go. But a solid thought nonetheless. Attempt at discard move. Who did this? Doesn't say. Let's look at this and give some potential judgments here because I was worried about it. So Craven and Hercules are the only two move cards here. This is interesting. So Miek could continue to ping Craven, maybe, but see, like Craven's at 2, Hercules is expensive at 4. Man, I mean, so what are you gonna do? Miek, Craven. Then you're on 3. All right, so maybe you dock. Okay, well, now I can't play my, Morbius or my Blade. I haven't discarded anything. I'm getting a 4/5 and I haven't done anything. But I guess if you get the MODOK and you just nuke your hand, your Miek moves around. You know what? Maybe there is something here. Maybe the MODOK saves the Miek in the move, and you really only need 2 cards here. And the Hercules, when Miek moves into it, it puts it out. So that way it comes into the Craven and it throws it back out. I don't know. I feel my gut says this is going to end up being a little clunky, but I like the thought of it, and this is inspiring me to maybe try it a little bit harder. Disco move. It looks like Zombie Nom Nom's got something similar here. We got Miek, Nebula, Craven, Wolverine, Jeff, Swarm, Silk, Storm, Sif, Hulk, MODOK, APOC. Wow, this is quite the mixture here. Quite the mixture. The Storm is interesting with the Nebula because there's a little bit of like, I guess I'll call it a lockdown. The discard move lockdown type combination here. You got the Jeff and the Silk to reach that maybe later if you storm something and you don't have your Nebula there. Not bad. It's not bad at all. The Craven to potentially get some points if anything's bounced around. Miek. As Lady Sif's always going to hit APOC. I mean, the Swarm to me feels out of place, honestly. Like, unless you hit that, you leave it in hand. I guess you could leave it in hand and then have the MODOK hit it. That's something to think about. I guess that's the only way you're going to play that. So I don't hate that either. It's a bunch of zeros maybe put in a spot. So that way you can move your Jeff or you lay it down to make sure that your Silk bounces to where you need it to bounce. So again, maybe there is something to this discard move situation. Maybe I shouldn't hate on as much as I thought I originally was. Rav Disco, another one by Zombies to go Nom Nom. Ravonna Renslayer. Why are we playing Ravonna Renslayer? What are we doing here? She doesn't bring costs down to 0, does she? I can't remember. I'd have to look at that. I haven't played her in so while. The Dracula is nice. The Morbius is nice. It gets cheaper. The Zola. So maybe you can play around a little bit with some of the stuff going there. Feels a little greedy for just 2 cards, really. I don't know if I'd want Ravonna in a card like this or 3 cards, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe you can Zola the MODOK even. So maybe there's some stuff there, but I mean, so you MODOK on 5 and then you Zola on 6 and just let the MODOK go wherever and it just keeps nuking your hand and Miek moves around a bunch and Morbius is getting points and Miek's getting points. I could see that being a little interesting, a little fun if you got like APOC and Swarm in hand and just it keeps hitting all those cards and it keeps, having Swarm in hand and giving yourself points on the board without playing it. I have to admit that does seem pretty interesting. So Zombies maybe coming up with something here. Fighting for Friends, Safety Blade. Got something a little different here. Miek, Blade, Morbius, Wolverine, Swarm, Colleen Wing, Storm again, Sif, Dracula, Hulk, MODOK, APOC. Now, it's been a while since I played Discard. The Storm Dracula play is a popular one, so I can see that. And did that other one have the Dracula in with the Storm, the Lockdown Storm? It didn't. So that was maybe why I looked at that. I would maybe look at something there and maybe think about the Dracula there, because I do like the Dracula with the Storm that Safety's got in here. Again, the APOC I think is a necessity. I'd be curious to see, if you can get some Craven in there with the Storm. I don't know. I mean, because you could put Craven down, Storm the Craven, and let Miek potentially keep pinging that. If you've got something, that could be very, very fun. Discard Dracula. We're looking at this. I do like the idea of Gambit when you're discarding and destroying something on for your opponent. I do think that's a very interesting play. I like it, but this one's got Proxima Midnight. We'll look at that in the graphic in a second, so I don't want to even address that one. All right, Drewberry, Hollow Knight. This is by Pulse Glazer, but I'm assuming it's a deck that Drewberry put together. So we've got Miek, Black Knight, Blade, Zabu, Kyera, Lady Sif, Ghost Rider, Shang-Chi, Hellcow, Scar, Magneto, and the Infinite. So this is interesting. So you've got the Zabu to help get your Hellcow, Shang-Chi, and Ghost Rider down to 3. So you could potentially play 2 of those last turn. And then you got Ghost Rider to potentially bring down right after the Sif, which is a really nice turn 4 play. I like that quite a bit. Depending if you've got Black Knight as well, a Zabu can also bring the Ebony Blade cheaper. This has got some potential. This is probably my favorite one so far. Admittedly, it's got some tech in it that I like. You've got the Kyera to help protect the Infinite or whatever that Lady Sif discards, so that you don't have to stress about it too much, getting blasted by someone else's Shang-Chi. I could see this putting in some work. I could definitely see this putting in work. This makes me want to change this. I mean, look, you're still niche with your Miek, but this makes me want to maybe raise the rating of Miek just with this deck right here, because I think it could be that good. Again, what shuts down decks like this? Cosmo. You keep somebody from revealing, these decks aren't doing anything. That's one bad thing about discard, is quickly shut down. Now, if you're playing in the wrong lanes, or if someone guesses the appropriate lanes. Collection notice. This looks like Bites Glazer. We've got Collector in this one. I mean, I don't like this. Swarm is really the only thing Collector is going to benefit from. Yeah, I'm not even going to really look at that one. Sorry, Glaze. I don't think that's really good. Perry Manilow is Magic with Miek. So Perry Manilow, this is one by Glazer. I assume Perry Manilow actually made this as well. They threw Magic in here to go along with Miek, Blade, Morbius. Again, Ravana. So Ravana's touching your Morbius, your Dracula, and your Zola again. So very similar to what we discussed before, I think, with zombies. You've got your Dakin, your Lady Sif, your Dracula, APOC to anchor down. The APOC, I do think with some of these is a necessity. I like this one with the thought of it going to a 7th turn, because the nice thing now is your Miek keeps getting points. So it just bounces around, gets points, and you can keep discarding. Maybe you Zola something and move it around. Again, you Zola your MODOK. That could be a lot of fun. So I do like that. Let's see, is there anything else on here that really just sort of jumps out at us that's a little bit different from some of the other ones? But this one's a little bit different. Tio's done this, another content creator. So Miek makes opponent discard. We've got Miek, Blade, Swarm, Colleen Wing, Morph, Moon Knight, Silver Samurai, Black Cat, Stature, Black Bolt, Hela, and Hela Carrier. The only thing I don't like about this is the fact that Miek is not going to get points for the Moon Knight and the Silver Samurai. I do like the idea of the Stature. I think that's very interesting. I think that could be played well. Black Bolt, again, is a pretty strong card. You're giving yourself some additional points as well with the Miek on the board. I'd probably shift this around a little bit. I feel like it's got too many different directions going. You know, how much are you going to discard that you're going to want Hela coming down? I mean, maybe the Hela Carrier, I guess, but you don't have your guaranteed hit of that with your Lady Sif. Black Cat's interesting, but she's not going to come back on the board other than Hela. Silver Samurai, like I said, is discarding from your opponent. I like the concept of that, so they can't get anything. But you're not necessarily gaining any points outside of a Stature. So I think there's something to be said for here. Morph, you know, I get worried about. And then I'd really look at the Black Cat, Hela Carrier. I feel like anytime I want to go Hela, I really want to get more high cards than just Black Cat and Hela Carrier. That's really where I'm looking. But, you know, I mean, maybe it's your backup in case you hit a card that you want to bring down. I don't know. It's something to think about there. As we look through everything else here, they all look pretty similar. Nothing's popping out to me as being like wholesale different. We've got Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight coming in the near future to also help with discard. So I think this archetype is evolving a lot. So let's take a look at our spotlight graphic and round this thing out. So this is our overall graphic. We've got 4 categories: save 4, solid, good niche, easy skip. Solid is just something that's not quite something that's guaranteed to save for. Good niche is maybe a particular archetype. Easy skip is something that maybe I don't really necessarily love, and I think you should just skip it. So again, Miek, Series 4. So that always leans into easy skip for me, because I'd rather spend the tokens and waste spotlight caches. Plus, I did overlap it a little bit with the good niche section here. So that's where it's at. We'll look at it a little bit closer. There's a lot of other things. The reason I want to keep this big graphic on the board here is there's not a ton of stuff that this is through February, that I'm like, yeah, you definitely want to get this. You know what I mean? A Call Obsidian changed to a 4/9. and it is a 1 cost card on the board, so that gives it a little bit versatility. I moved that up a little bit. There's something to maybe play there with Zabu. I liked it before though, where it was 10 and you couldn't destroy it, because I thought there was some Scar synergy there. Rip on that. So I don't know. We'll see. Beta Ray Bill in that middle section. Grandmaster coming also this month. Oh, I don't know. I'm really... Loki took a hit. Not a huge one, but it's still... Hit Monkey. I don't know. Grandmaster I just don't think is going to be that great of a card. I keep moving it lower and lower. And then I mentioned before that we've got these other two, Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight, coming in February. So looking at Miek, again, it's in this easy skip, good niche area. Annihilus is a 5/6 now. Phoenix Force variants, who cares? You're never going to see it other than in your own hand. So it's really not that exciting. And maybe if it had a cool animation as it did something and you played on the board, it'd be more interesting to have these type of cards that merge, have cool variants, but otherwise, eh. So I think, honestly, it's a skip, easy skip as far as spotlights go. Use your tokens. Use your tokens. If you're not a discard player, forget about it. A good niche if you want it. I think for discard players, they're absolutely wanting and needing to have this card, and I would fully support them getting it. Though I'd still say spend your tokens, assuming it's still a Series 4 coming into the game. So that's all I got. I appreciate making it this far. If you want to hammer down that like button, I appreciate it. Until next time, we hope you have a wonderful day.